The technological revolution that we now live in has raised significant concerns regarding the impact of artificial intelligence on every aspect of our lives. While these concerns are real and valid, is it possible that some AI applications may actually help create or contribute to the psychosocial safety many seek? We'll talk about the intersection of AI and safety up next on this episode of the Psychosocial Safety USA podcast. This is the Psychosocial Safety USA podcast. I'm Dr. I. David Daniels, occupational health and safety professional, researcher, and global thought leader in psychosocial safety. Across the country and around the world, many organizations are struggling because conditions inside them are working against the very human beings who keep them alive. Psychosocial safety remains aspirational in far too many places. In each episode, you'll hear about real experiences, the latest research, and practical strategies from experts that help organizations and the people inside them move closer to that aspiration. Psychosocial hazards are real and preventable. So let's get to work. Welcome to this episode of the Psychosocial Safety USA podcast. I'm your host, Dr. I. David Daniels, and I want to thank you for tuning in. Our goal for each episode is to increase awareness of the importance of psychosocial safety by learning from the lived experiences, research, and expertise of our guests, as well as advocating strategies to reduce harm and minimize vulnerability to psychosocial hazards in the American workplace. In this episode, we're diving into one of the most disruptive forces in the modern workplace, artificial intelligence. And here's the truth. AI is already functioning as a psychosocial hazard for many workers, but not because the technology itself is harmful, but because of how people perceive and experience it. When AI shows up without clarity, transparency, or worker involvement, it triggers uncertainty, fear of job loss, concerns about fairness, and the sense that decisions are being made to people rather than with them. Those perceptions and experiences are exactly what turn a neutral psychosocial factor into a hazard capable of causing damage in the mind of the person exposed, which in turn influences their behavior. But also, AI has the potential to be a powerful tool for psychosocial safety when organizations use it to reduce overload, increase clarity, support decision-making, and identify emerging risks. AI can actually strengthen the conditions that make work safer. And when workers are included in the design and governance of AI systems, the technology can enhance autonomy, fairness, and trust, the very foundations of psychosocial and psychological safety. So AI, like most potential psychosocial hazards, isn't inherently good or bad. It's a mirror. It reflects the quality of leadership, communication, and worker involvement behind it. That's the conversation we're having today on the Psychosocial Safety USA podcast. And I'm honored to talk to someone who knows quite a bit about AI as a safety tool. So let's start with an introduction of my guest by my guest with this question. Who is Lance Belony?
Well, first of all, David, thanks. I really do appreciate the opportunity to be with you on the broadcast because it is important that we get the message out there in terms of artificial intelligence. What is it? How does it impact? And then some of the more acute uses of artificial intelligence, and in this case, AI as it relates to safety, right? So who is Lance Belony? Well, let me start by saying that, I have been in the industry for over 40 years. Started my career in engineering, worked with a variety of organizations in a variety of industrial verticals, including construction, oil and gas, pulp and paper, commercial products. And so I've had a good broad swath of experience from operations to safety to engineering. And that really gave me a good, solid a cross section of understanding of how business works. Went from a junior engineer to a senior executive, right? So I was able to navigate and move progressively along those paths. So I've always looked at my career as that has given me a real strong opportunity to gain a good working understanding at each one of those levels. So, what really makes the business work, how the finances impact the business, impact business decisions, and all of those things kind of wrapped up into a career that really gave me a good sense of understanding of where I actually and ultimately landed right now in my career. And so as it stands right now, working with artificial intelligence, which is, as you so aptly pointed out, the most disruptive technology that has hit industry in my career. And I would even dare say in the history of the industrialized workplace. Artificial intelligence has given us the opportunity to make the kinds of advances that we've all longed for, but it has also, as you aptly pointed out, given us the opportunity to do some things that perhaps we may not want to do and probably should not do. And that's the aspect of AI that I think we really need to manage, and we really need to keep our finger on that pulse, because we don't want it to be a disruptive tool to the detriment of our industrial progress. We want it to continue to be the type of disruptive tool to the progressiveness of our industrial process. So that's how I would explain who I am and how I got to where I am. And I will say, I do want to say this. About 10 years ago, I was sitting at my desk. At this point, I am the director of manufacturing for a major organization within the construction industry, a manufacturer within the construction industry. And I'm sitting at my desk, and I am really thinking and considering the impact that AI is having on our industry at the time. And so at that moment, I realized that either I was going to get in line with artificial intelligence, or I was going to get run over by artificial intelligence. And so I made the decision at that point to somewhat reinvent myself, okay, to make a career pivot. And that's when I decided that I was going to immerse myself in the understanding of artificial intelligence, the industrial Internet of Things, how those two things began were playing with each other in, if you will, the proverbial sandbox. And I made that decision, and it was a good decision, and ultimately landed me in a position where I could take the role that I'm currently serving right now as Senior Vice President for Business Development for probably one of the most advanced artificial intelligence safety platforms in the world, not just in the US, but in the world. We are a global platform, and we work with some of the largest names in industry.
Wow. That's it. That's a unique opportunity for a guy like me, and I'll share more about that later. But before I go on, though, I'd like your opinion. What does psychosocial safety mean to you?
When you and I first met, I heard you use that term, and I have to be very transparent and honest here. I had no idea. That was the first time I'd ever heard that. And so I really didn't understand it. So I'm going to give that answer. And to this very moment, don't fully understand it, obviously, as much as you do, but have learned a bit from our interaction and what have you. But I'll give it a shot at what it means to me. I always like those questions. It kind of throws me back to grade school when the teacher used to say, give the answer in your own words. I love those because at that point it was whatever I thought it was that's all that mattered. So anyway, I'll give a shot at it. Right. The way I see it is, how does my state of mind affect my safety and safety performance on the job? How does my state of mind, how I arrived at work, where I am in the moment psychologically, how is that impacting the way I approach safety on my job? Do I bypass it? Am I more keen and aware of it? Am I, just what is my psychology doing in the moment as it pertains to my safety? That's the way I have kind of internalized the psychology aspect of safety.
That is the nice thing about this question is there is no wrong answer, and that's the point. Again, as you described it, it is just like being in second or third grade or whatever when we are asked our opinion about something, because I think that too many of these really personal and really important concepts have been put into a box. It has to be this way, and if it's not that way, then there's something wrong with the way I see it. And that I can't say I agree with that. I mean, I can't control that, but I don't. Psychosocial safety is absolutely about how I see it, how I experience it, how I'm feeling today. And I'm not different from other human beings. We have lots of these, and I will say a lot of them are industrial kinds of processes that assume that human beings are machines, that if we do this, then they're going to do that. The machine does this and that. The machine always operates in the same way. It doesn't have opinions about things. It operates in a very logical sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But humans are not that way, and they never will be. They're just not. We respond to things in very different ways. We interpret things in very different ways. And it doesn't make our way right or wrong, but it does make it very different. And when you've created this system, even a system that you say is for my safety, but didn't consider me, it might not get it all right. As a matter of fact, it probably won't. And again, that doesn't make you or I bad people. It just says that our system has been limited in the ways in which it looked at safety in general. And I think it's an expansion of our conversation about the topic. That's all. It's not just, if there's water on the floor, am I going to slip? The question is, if there's water on the floor, why didn't I even think to mop it? Well, how'd the water get there? Are we concerned about those kinds of things? Because it's easy enough to go, oh, Bob slipped. It was his fault. Now we got to fire Bob. But if we would do the investigation to find out that, A, we've got a maintenance problem because the water remains on the floor. That's the mechanical piece. But then there's a state of mind. Why is it that Bob is moving from one place to another at such a pace that he didn't notice the water on the floor? So all of those things are important if we are really seeking to have an environment that is as safe as it could possibly be for everyone.
And by the way, when I look at the psychology aspect of it, one of the things, and you can feel free to kind of rein me in a little bit.
That's okay.
The first thing, not the first thing, but one of the things that come to mind is this behavioral based safety approach that many companies are adopting. And the question that I've always, not always, but the question that I've had is the distinction between the psychosocial aspect that you advocate and this behavior-based approach that is in place in the market right now. The distinction between those two things. Help me understand that, David. Because I want to speak to that as it relates to artificial intelligence.
Well, I do not consider myself to be an expert on behavioral-based safety. I know enough about it to have concerns about it because
Okay.
many of the behavioral-based concepts are based on this assumption. The behavior of the human is the root of the problem. And I cannot say that I 100% agree with that. The behavior of the human is part of the problem. It is not the problem. But I think it's like if you take an apple seed and you put an apple seed in really perfect soil for the apple seed, an apple tree will grow and you have lots of fruit and all of that. If you throw an apple seed on the concrete in the middle of a parking lot with no way for it to root, it can get washed away at any time. It doesn't have any way to, it's not going to grow anything. It's the same seed. There's nothing wrong with the seed. It's where that seed was planted or attempted to be planted that matters. And they're both important. Also, if I throw out an apple seed and look for oranges, I'm probably going to be disappointed because that's not what this seed was intended to do. And so I say all that to say that I'm not here to bash behavioral-based safety. I'm suggesting, though, that it is incomplete when we assume that it's all about the behavior of the worker. If the worker will do this, then everything's going to be fine. If they don't, there's something wrong with the worker. No, not totally. The worker has a role. The worker brings something to the conversation. But also, we have to have an environment that assumes that they're going to see things different and that assumes that they're going to err because humans make errors. Machines don't.
Yes.
Humans do. And we will always make, and again, even the definition of an error is the behavior of the human when compared to the system that other humans established. So again, all that diatribe is to say that behavioral-based safety is not enough in and of itself. It's a part of the discussion.
One of the things that you said, David, that I want to address, and I want to address it from this standpoint, and I think you absolutely agree with me. Machines may not make mistakes, but machines malfunction, okay? They do it all the time. Machines were programmed to do one thing, but a malfunction, whether that is caused by maintenance or whether that is caused by a glitch in the program, of whatever reason, that machine did something unexpectedly, right?
Sure.
And so we can certainly dial that in to understand the root cause of that malfunction. That malfunction may have led to putting someone in danger, okay? And that's where the safety aspect of all that we've been discussing around the machinery, the process, the person, the human machine interface, where the inflection point between the human and the machine from a physical standpoint comes into play at. As I like to say, in terms of safety, the moment the human, the person, the individual engages the process at whatever level, whether that is driving on the lot of the company's property, okay, walking in the building of the operational of the operational facility or of the office. That is the inflection point where the human and the company interface, okay? And at that point is where all of the safety concerns, the industrial safety concerns, whether it's psychosocial, whether it's human-based behavior, whether it's just the physical safety concerns that we have, start to impact. They get more acute when the process comes is more engaged, whether I am welding or I am changing a light bulb or I am operating a CNC machine. That's where the inflection point becomes much more acute, right? And so what we've done on our side from a standpoint of artificial intelligence is that we've added a layer of intelligence to be able to inspect and monitor for those critical inflection moments where someone was working at an elevated height without the necessary safety gear on, okay? Or if someone is operating near a robot and infringed on a zone while that robot was working, okay? The layer of intelligence that AI now is offering companies is to be able to do that 24/7, 365 at all times and intervene when necessary, intervene when requested, okay? And so whether the supervisor or the employee themselves or the safety inspector are aware of it, the AI is monitoring that continuously. And that gives a layer of safety protection or safety intervention that we to this point have not had. Okay? And for me, that's a good thing. Okay? We've literally gone beyond Big Brother to my brother's keeper type of approach. And let me explain what I mean by that. So Big Brother has always given the connotation of the company watching me, right? Whereas my brother's keeper gives the connotation of someone's looking out for me. Okay? And that gives a much different approach and a much different sentiment from the workforce than just a camera watching me to see what I'm doing and make a mistake. Because I can tell you that a portion of our technology and a portion of the AI technology that's out there, which is categorized as red zone intrusion or operational zone intrusion, is more akin to my brother's keeper, right? Because I've literally seen people, David, go into a cordoned off zone because they feel that they can be careful enough to escape any type of real danger to themselves, only to regret that decision because they were not careful enough. And so in situations like that, the AI can pause the operation when things like that happen. There are instances where there's an interlocking gate, let's say, that would prevent someone from doing what I just explained, and they can get by that because they can go in before the machine is turned on, and then once the machine is turned on, it doesn't recognize that someone's in that zone. They cannot bypass that with artificial intelligence and machine vision and image recognition. So again, I'd like to make the big distinction between the technology as Big Brother and then as opposed to my brother's keeper.
That's such an important distinction, the difference between those two views, because that my brother or sister's keeper is
our sister's keeper.
I think that's an important distinction in any workplace. And as I think we were talking a little bit about that before we came on online, that that is difficult to do without the culture in place in the beginning. It doesn't just, so you show up with this technology, it doesn't just fix this overnight. If there has been a culture of big brothering and everything that we found we use in some negative way, it's going to be hard to convince people that this new way of doing is going to be any different. Some of it is about having an environment where people feel like, look, this company is not perfect, but they at least care a little bit about me, that they are trying. You see what I mean? And even when something like this is introduced, I can hear the conversation right now that, look, we have been working at this for a while, and it hasn't gone as far as we want it to go. We've made some errors. We've been trying to come up with an environment that helped you feel like that you cared, that we care about you, and that should be in the conversation that's had at the beginning of the process. I say this often: safety never works very well when you try to do it to people. It works even less well when you try to do it for people in some kind of paternalistic way. It works best when we do it with people.
Yes.
So the conversation is, we, the safety committee, the executive leadership of the organization, we've had these things go on. We've tried a bunch of other things. We think this is going to help us, and we want you to be involved, workers, leaders, everybody, to be involved in how we implement this, how we use this information, who do we want to be notified of certain things. So again, the standard to me is less important than who established it. And that's a lot of our issues, is that they were established by one guy. So we hire Lance, we give him the job, and we sit him in an office by himself, and he figures it out for himself. The problem is the other thousands of people who have these kind of different views that were never consulted, were never involved, that have no idea. And what is probably a great idea to one person gets rolled out, and it's received as if it's a disaster because people don't feel bought in.
Let me share what, and again, as I said in the intro, I work with companies across the globe, and I work with companies all the way from mom and pops, all the way to your Fortune 100s. Okay, so I've seen the spectrum, and I work across industrial verticals, and in all of that, my takeaway in terms of how the best practice of rolling out a technology like this, okay? Here is the best practice that I've seen and that I like to advocate when I talk to companies. It needs to come from the top, okay? And it needs to come from the top, not as a mandate, but it needs to come from the top as a place of concern, a place of care, a place of we're investing in your safety, okay? So the CEO really needs to, or it does well when the CEO or the senior vice president or what have you establishes an initiative to say, we are going to protect our people, okay? And to do that, we have identified a tool that does that better than anything we've seen in industry at this point. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Let's say we have a worker, a construction company, and a worker is required to go up scaffolding and work at an elevated height, right? We can give the employee the necessary PPE. We can give the employee the necessary training. We can give the employee all of those things, right? But to the psychosocial aspect, they came into work that day with something on their mind, with something bothering them, with something that was distracting them, and they did not tie off their safety harness while they were on that elevated height. They did everything right. The training was there, the PPE was there, the precautions were taken. But this issue of the psychosocial aspect did not allow the employee to do the basic thing of tie themselves off, right? Okay? Because I couldn't do that for them. The supervisor couldn't. The safety inspector couldn't. That's a part that is left to the employee, that's only the employee can do. How do we intervene on that? Enter AI. Because we are our brother's keeper, I saw my brother, again, I'm staying with the analogy that we were drawing, right? I saw my brother working without the necessary safety precaution in place. So I notify someone immediately that my brother is not in a safe situation. And that now allows us to intervene and really be our brother's keeper. Radio up to the tower, radio up to the scaffold. Joe needs to tie off. That can happen in a matter of minutes before something catastrophic happens, right? So I'm going back now to the CEO. When the CEO can, or the senior executive can articulate those kinds of concerns to the workforce and get that workforce to understand that this is a part of us looking out for you. Now, how best do we deploy this? It becomes less of an intrusive thing and more of a support to the workforce, to the employees, to be able to say, okay, I get it. I understand. Safety is critical, not just safety is critical because it is my life, it is our lives, it is our health that is at stake, right? And our senior executives see enough or have enough concern in that respect to be able to be willing to invest in this technology to keep us safe, okay? That's the way I see this, and I've seen this deployed in many instances to the greatest success, David. Because you're right. If I just throw it out there and say, the employees are left to their own imaginations about what it is and how it works and just what this is all about, more often than not, they will resort to the less productive perception of it. And then now you have a hard time really rolling it out further.
Yeah. And let's follow that analogy even further.
Okay.
So following it. So first of all, when we're using the AI, the safety professional involved in the implementation will ensure that based on job hazard analysis, we have the place that people are supposed to get their PPE in place is over here. It's at this base, and before they cross this line, which is well from the height, you can't go past this point before we'll notify you. We're not going to wait until you get to the edge of a place to fall. And, by the way, the person, we will notify them early on so that can be adjusted. That's one. But number two, what happens once that data is converted? So I remember, we've talked about this as well. Data becomes information, becomes knowledge. Once that becomes known to a supervisor or next person, the next step isn't, we got to fire Bob because we have a zero tolerance for that. No. No. This system is intended to address this. And now we have the conversation about, hey, are you okay? Because this person, that's not something that they do. They generally are really good about, but something happened today. That's our opportunity to have the conversation with them about, hey, are you okay today? And perhaps we should have been doing at the beginning of the shift anyway. Perhaps before we send people out to do super heavy industrial safety sensitive things, we should be checking in with them as human beings. I am aware of a technology, again, that is also AI based, that determines whether or not the person is impaired before they even go to their workstation, again, based on their voice biomarkers. So that's another system fix. There are things we can do in the system. So when the human errors, because they will, when they err, we don't say that there's something wrong with the person. The person's doing exactly what other humans do. We provide more information so we can mitigate that. And then we try to figure out, is there something else going on that we should be concerned about? But it's about concern for the human. It's about my brother or sister's keeper, not big brother, not looking.
That's exactly right.
People cost way too much to replace, particularly good work. So think about the thousands of people who have lost their jobs for being 5 minutes late on the job, which is ridiculous. So you fired the person because they were 5 minutes late. Now everybody else has to work harder because they can't do their part. They have to find a new job, which they may or may not find because you fired them. When the reason that they, were 5 minutes late may be because of the check-in system. It could be because of traffic. It could be or it could be that they found out that their significant other has cancer this morning.
Absolutely.
So it's thinking about all of that and creating environments that are as best as possible, first for the human being and then for the business imperative. First for the human being, though.
There are two truths that I hold immutably. I guess that's the right way to say that. Number one, I absolutely believe that people come to work to do a good job. Okay? The old 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the people are going to be, right inside that good worker. 10% are probably going to be challenging, and 10% are going to be super achievers. Okay, that's the old 80-20 rule, right? And the old bell curve. The other immutable thing that I believe and hold dear is that people want to go home after their shift is over. Okay, they want to go home the way they came to work. Okay, in good health, socially, psychologically, and physically. They want to go home. Those two things I hold immutable. I think people want to do a good job, and I think people want to go home after their shift is over, healthy and saved. The challenge that we have to deal with is how do we achieve and how do we encourage both of those things to happen? Allow people to do a good job and allow people to do that good job safely. That's the challenge that I see a lot of this has to deal with. The role that I see, again, I'm gonna narrow the conversation a bit here to talk about how artificial intelligence can facilitate that. Okay, in two ways. I think artificial intelligence from a workflow standpoint, and I know this is a little bit off of what we're talking about, but from a workflow standpoint, is clearly demonstrating its power of making the worker more efficient. Okay, it's just giving the worker information, data to be used to convert into knowledge. It's giving that in abundance now, right? I can put on a pair of glasses with cameras that allows someone with more experience than me to guide me through the process, right? I can chat in, I can put in something into one of these AI platforms and spit out a presentation that would have normally taken me a day, 2 days to do. I can do that now in minutes. The efficiency aspect is there. Then there is the safety aspect, David, which is where I play in, and the ability to take abundance of data now, right? I've gotten data not only from my operation within my company, but I'm pulling data now from multiple sites across my ecosystem in my company. I'm pulling data from 5 different sites to understand what are the practices, the tendencies, the behaviors, the times, the things that are actually happening in these different places. And now I am consolidating that information to see trends, to see standard practices, to see what's worked, best practices, behavior patterns. All of that I can begin to see so that I can now begin to predict any type of risk that is starting, that may be emerging out of all of that that's happening. who's doing it best? What are they doing that we can actually use to influence or to help other areas of our organization as well? So the role that artificial intelligence is of not the role, but the benefits that artificial intelligence are affording us are just tremendous. But I go back to something you said at the very beginning. It's a tool. And if we use it right, it becomes a benefit and an asset. If we use it wrong, it becomes a deterrent and something undesirable for us to engage in. So that's kind of how I see the role that AI can play in the psychosocial aspect of it, and just the traditional safety side as well.
Right. Yeah, this is. I find a lot of AI kinds of conversations don't tend to be this balance, and we talked about this before we came on. That you'll have one conversation. AI can just solve all the problems. Everything's going to be perfect. All we just have to do is just slip that AI and it's all going to be good. That's one view. Then there's the other view. AI is bad. It's going to take people's jobs. It's going to be horrible. The end of the world is coming. And look out for Skynet. And like everything, there is a balance. And again, to the point that we continue, this is a tool. And it is a tool that needs to be a part of another word that I love that you use, a part of the ecosystem we're trying to create. If this ecosystem is about the safety and care and concern for our most valuable asset, the human beings, that's what this thing is about. Because we believe that if we care for our greatest asset, then that other asset called more business and more money is going to come. It will come. And here's the other thing, too, is that there's a lot of conversations about how AI, again, in some cases, is going to replace some jobs that have existed before, but it's also going to create opportunities that we haven't had before if we use it that way. But again, that requires, as opposed to, again, a group of folks, we're going to implement this. It's a conversation that we're all having to say, this is where we're going. This is how we want to use this. And here's the people that we have right now. How can we involve as many as possible in this conversation? It may result in some job descriptions being changed, but we're going to work our way through that process, as opposed to wake up one morning and say 10,000 people don't have a job anymore.
Well, and that's a how do I say this? We've always faced that challenge with innovation.
Exactly.
Always.
Exactly.
Okay. So, at its extreme, right? When everybody was riding around in buggies and horses and buggies and carriages.
Right.
Then along came the automobile. Guess what happened to those people that knew how to build carriages? Either they had to flex and become something more, right? They had to adjust, or they had to be without a job. Now, that's cold and callous the way I said it, but the reality of it is that those are the facts. And AI is very much the same way. Yes, for some people, and I'll give you another example. Think about the secretary's position, more modern. Once the personal computer came along, I'm old enough to remember when secretaries were still in place and embedded in departments and organizations. Once the personal computer came along, it made it much more difficult to justify having a secretary in the office, or as many in the office.
Let me share with you, I have been in a committed relationship with an administrative professional for 39 years. When she was a kid, I mean, 6, 7, 8 years old, she wanted to be a secretary. She has never done anything else other than serve as an executive administrative professional and has found plenty of work because she's really good at it. So she's been assistant to college presidents and bank presidents and, a state senator and a rocket scientist. And because she has her skills are transferable to the environments where people actually still want a human being to do that. Now that many parts of her job are automated. So again, this is about, as a human or as a system, we've got two choices. Evolution or extinction is always the choice.
It's always the choice.
Always. The question is whether, am I going to evolve with this changing environment, or am I going to become extinct? That's up to me. Same thing with the system. If we want to, again, continue to create as much opportunity as possible and have as little impact, we're going to have some. There are ways to plan this in advance to say, look, we're going this direction. We've involved people. We're going to take this group of people that were doing this thing, and now they're going to do that thing for those who want to, because this is the direction we're going. We're going to give you plenty of time. But we can't drag you along, and there may not be a role for you if you want to do what we used to do 5 years ago. We're not doing that anymore. We care about you. We really do. We want you to go with us. We really do. But everybody's got to change together. It can't just be one side or the other.
Yes. And that is exactly the approach that I often advocate when I talk with senior executives and leaders about adopting this technology, is their ability to do more with existing assets.
Absolutely.
Whether that's a human asset or whether that's physical assets or buildings or what have you, do more with what you already have, which means you're able to do this more efficiently, right? That's the way you do more with your existing. And so artificial intelligence really gives us the ability to do that and to maximize productivity with existing resources. Okay. I want to pull the conversation back a little bit to, where this technology is able to benefit the HSE professional. Okay. You talk about evolution or extinction. This technology, again, I'm dating myself horribly here, but I'm doing it. When I first got in business as an engineer, I started drafting with a pencil, paper, a T-square, and a drawing board. That's where I started, right? Okay. By the time I was 10 years into my career, computer-aided design had come along, and the board was being phased out or had been phased out by that time. Okay. So either I could stick with, I'm going to do it on the board and this, that, and the other, or I could evolve and learn how to do it via computer-aided drafting or design. Likewise, for the HSE professional, this technology is here. It is not going anywhere. It is going to be a staple within the next 2 to 5 years. Companies are adopting this at a significant rate because of the obvious improvement opportunities that it represents. So for the HSC professional, I would highly encourage people to really begin to explore, how best do I utilize this? How best can this be messaged? Because I assure you, you can't calculate as fast as a calculator, right? Or should I say, you can't compute as fast as a calculator. You can't compute as fast as a computer. You can learn how to use both of them to effectively compute. Likewise, this technology. You can't, David, I can tell you, I can set this technology next to the world's best and most proficient safety professional on the planet. and it will perform and outperform that individual. And in some cases, those individuals, hands down. So there is no keeping pace with it at the individual level. It is very much a situation of leveraging this technology to maximize its impact or maximize its effectiveness in the workplace. I do believe, and I'm going to be very transparent with this, I do believe that we need to always manage it and never let it begin to manage us. Okay? We need to be cognizant of managing it. And I'm going to say this, and I know I've been on a diatribe here, so just indulge me for just a few more seconds. One of the concerns that I have as an AI professional, someone in the industry and in the business, the concern that I have is it's still an artificial intelligence. If we allow ourselves to be led by AI, eventually AI will be telling us what to do. Okay, eventually, that is just the natural destination of that behavior. We don't want AI telling us what to do. We want AI telling us what we can do, and we maintain the final decision as to whether or not we do it. Okay, that I believe, if we keep that as the North Star of this entire AI journey, we'll maintain control of AI. If we let it tell us what to do, then eventually we'll all be doing the same thing. And that's the concern that I have.
Yeah, I do recall conversations about decision support systems. And that's what I see AI being able to help. It is a decision support, not a decider in and of itself.
In and of itself.
It is a decision support. It helps me analyze the problem, come up with alternative ways to approach addressing the problem, and even, perhaps give me, lead me down the path of the particular decision that I believe I want to make. But we need to continue to make decisions. And frankly, this may change 20, 30 years down the road. I don't know. I'm as a futurist, I'm really all over seeing things change. Eventually, I don't want to drive a car. I can tell you that right now. I don't. It is one of the most hazardous thing that we do as human beings, and we don't do it very well. The thing that is most likely to get you killed at work is driving. So if we could take that out of the hands of humans at some point in the future, I'm good with that. But there are some things that from a psychosocial safety perspective, it feels safer to me to be able to do this thing and make this decision myself. That's the environment we're getting into. It's not just about how it's going to affect people physically. People want the human touch more than they want a robot to touch them at the moment. That's where we are right now.
That's
People
right.
want human conversation and connection more so than we want the connection of a machine that's simply going to tell us what it thinks that we want to hear. So again, I cannot see far enough into the future to know whether or not as a society we will change. I just don't see that in my lifetime. I anticipate that I will value more the human interaction, the human touch, the human conversation. And I want some of these systems to help it so I can have more time for leisure and goofing off and not having to make hard decisions all the time.
I like to say this about our technology and about this genre of technology. It turns HSE professionals into problem solvers rather than problem hunters, right? It takes the problem hunting out of the equation, and gives you more time to be a problem solver. Now I can apply my intellectual energy and effort into solving the problem because the system has given me all of the data that's gonna lead to an informed decision and an informed choice. So I like to look at the technology that way, making me more of a problem solver than a problem hunter. And that really helps a lot of senior executives understand this. HSC professionals embrace this because it just gives them, again, I can't say this more. I've been in this business for 40 years, okay? Actually 42 years, because I graduated college in 1984. For 42 years, and I've never seen anything move the needle in industry as much as AI is moving the needle. Period. Not the cell phone, not the personal computer. I'm trying to think of what else came along. Then now AI. None of that has moved the needle as much as artificial intelligence. And that's a good thing. I'm all for that. Great. Now the question becomes for us, and again, on the safety side of things, how best do we leverage this technology now? How best do we leverage it? And I can tell you one thing emphatically, you're better off leveraging it rather than ignoring it. I can make that emphatic statement. You're better off leveraging it rather than ignoring it, because your company, your organization, your people are going to be better off, because you're going to be able to do more. You're going to be able to keep your people safer. You're going to be able to, leverage cost, all of those things as a result of this technology. And that's something that I do on a regular basis with our clients.
Absolutely. Oh boy, there is a lot more we could talk about, but I think we're going to wrap with a question to you. The question to you is: there are probably people who are watching or listening to this episode right now, going like, "Wow, wow! I'm really intrigued. I've heard something that really sparked my interest." So, if folks wanted to reach out to you, get a little bit more information about a few more details about just AI in general, and and some of the solutions that you get involved in, how best to do that?
Yeah. First of all, I appreciate that question. People can reach me, and I'm sure you're going to put this on the screen somewhere. People can reach me at my email address. They can reach me at lance@sgtglobal.com. And I would highly encourage people to do that. They can find me on LinkedIn under Lance Belony Sr. My son is also on LinkedIn, and he's Lance Belony Jr. So he's there as well. But they can reach me there. And I would encourage people to do that, because it's hard to get a full contextual understanding of this type of technology, and more acutely as it pertains to safety, just by listening to what we talked about. But we can have a more exhaustive conversation and a more intimate conversation one-on-one if they would so desire. So they can reach me at lance@sgtglobal.com. I am based in Houston, Texas, as well. So if there's anyone from Houston that may be listening and would like to connect, have lunch, they can reach me there. I'm also going to give my cell phone number, David, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
They can reach me at 281-753-7992, 281-753-7992. Please feel free to give me a call, reach out, connect. Again, I gladly have conversations with people all the time, just to help them understand, just more about this technology.
Yeah, Lance, I have to tell you, it's this has been a pleasure for me to sit and listen and be involved in a conversation with someone who who is as engaged in this whole conversation as you are. And also, I don't tend to get in the rooms of really big organizations all that often because I've been a local government, small business kind of guy most of my life, and rather enjoy that space. But it's wonderful to get the opportunity to hang out with the big dogs and talk about important stuff. That's just really important. But again, I really appreciate the time that you shared and how you've taken this, what could be a kind of a complex, almost airy-fairy kind of conversation, and really made it relatable. So again, thanks very much for the time. And I'm sure we're going to be talking more in the future. I appreciate you.
Hey, David, thank you so very much. I really appreciated the opportunity. And I hope I shared some things that, really gave the audience some insight into this just fascinating and intriguing technology, and more directly, just its application in safety.
Thanks for joining this episode of the Psychosocial Safety USA podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the podcast with others who are committed to building safer workplaces. To catch up on previous episodes, visit our website at psychosocialsafetyusa.com or on YouTube at Psychosocial Safety USA Podcast. You can also follow my work on Substack at Dr. I. David D. If you have questions, suggestions for future guests, or would like to share your own workplace experiences, send an email to info@psychosocialsafetyusa.com. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Psychosocial Safety USA podcast.